What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for life, coming at you on YouTube, and today I've got some football focus. I wanted to come back to you guys one more time because I did the first 4 rounds of the Steelers 2020 draft, and I got a ton of success from my draft predictions and some mild success on my first draft video of the first 4 rounds. So I wanted to bring you guys the Steelers round 6 and 7 picks that I didn't cover in the last video, and I've had some time now to reflect on it because I didn't get this video uploaded as fast as I wanted to. So, some stuff happened, so it just took longer to make the video and upload it. So I apologize for the late entry. But if you guys want to go back and see my draft predictions or my draft review of the Steelers' second, third, and fourth round picks, those videos are on my channel. Just the last 2 videos that I posted, so go check those out. This is just the final 2 rounds, kind of the ancillary picks of the draft, the extra guys. The guys who you're looking for, guys with high upside, guys who could possibly surprise you and break through. Most guys don't, but a couple special ones do. You're just hoping these guys make the roster. Your 5th through 7th round picks generally, you're just hoping they make the opening day roster or they compete in camp and do pretty well in camp and do well in preseason. So there's not a lot of high hopes for long-term longevity on this team, but they did address some needs. They just kind of did this draft a little backwards. I'm going to cover these last 2 picks, and then I'll give you guys my overall review and look back at the entire draft. Round 6, pick number 198. That's the Steelers select another Maryland Terrapin, safety Antoine Brooks Jr. It's the second Maryland pick, obviously Mike Tomlin's son. Coaches at Maryland or knows the coach at Maryland, so there's some ties there. They know the players pretty well, so they've selected 2 Maryland guys in this draft. So that kind of makes sense. Antoine Brooks is the linebacker safety hybrid, which is kind of the guy you wanted in there to play in the dime packages and the sub packages. The safety spot needed help badly. It was one of the biggest needs, in my opinion. Because this player is not going to be a starter, but it will be somebody that would play in rotation, special teams, playing in any kind of relief whenever Minka or Edmonds was on the bench, and would do a lot of sub-package stuff where they would do some outside blitzing and stuff like that. Antoine Brooks has the power and kind of some raw skill here. He's definitely a raw guy. He plays a lot, and reminds me a lot, actually, of Terrell Edmonds, where he's in most of his highlight tape and stuff like that, watching his best moments as a leader on the Terrapins team, was he played pretty well against pretty good teams, and he was a blitzer a lot. He did a lot of like coming up in the backfield and stopping the run, doing some kind of flash blitzes and getting some sacks on the quarterback. So he does a lot of hitting and a lot of tackling around the line of scrimmage, playing very much like a Mark Barron or like a Terrell Edmonds. Didn't see him a whole lot in coverage. He did get a few interceptions on some overthrows. He is athletic. He can spot the ball if he needs to, but he's not a shining guy in coverage. So he's not going to be back deep doing a lot of 3 deep quarter coverage. But he could do some stuff around the line of scrimmage. So he is going to be a compliment in a way because the Steelers like to blitz some slot guys. They bring Mike Hilton a lot. They bring Sutton once in a while. They bring Edmonds after the quarterback has some success. And Antoine Brooks could be a guy like that if he manages to make the team. So he does fill a need in terms of the third safety on this team. I think he could be someone to push Dangerfield or Marcus Allen out of their spot. But number one, they just drafted him too late, and he's still a questionable guy in terms of he's not a great cover guy, and he does overshoot and miss sometimes on his blitzing. So maybe there's another safety I think around that time you could have picked, and they also kind of waited too long to fill this need, but at least they did address it with a guy that could fit their system. So it's a little questionable, but at least they went after a value pick here. And then round 7, they did kind of the same thing. Round 7, pick 232, they went with Carlos Davis, the big D tackle out of Nebraska. It's a project guy, but he is a big physical D tackle. If nothing else, he's got the size. He's got some power. He's definitely raw in his techniques. He's not super athletic, so he's not going to bring a ton of speed or athleticism to the position, but he's another body on the roster. If you ask me, defensive tackle was our biggest need in this draft, and we did not cover it until round 7, pick 232, so that, to me, again, is an issue. So I don't have any issue with this pick. Taking a D tackle, we need another body on the roster. He comes from a good school. He's a big, sizable guy that could fill the middle. So it makes sense to bring this guy into camp and see what he has and see if he can surprise you. To be in there along with the guy from the XFL, Kayvon Walker, and along with Tyson Alualu, a veteran who can fill in, and Bugs and McCullers, and the guy Wormley we traded for from the Ravens. So now you've got a bevy of guys in different aspects on this team that can try to challenge for the position. But again, when you got your biggest need and it's your one spot on your entire team that does not have a clear starter from day one, that's the spot you want to go after in like the first round, second round, third round, not the seventh round. So I like the pick here for what it was, but it was a little too late to address that. So as a whole in this draft, looking back now, I've had about 2 or 3 days to look back over the other picks. My favorite pick in this draft was Kevin Dotson, the offensive guard. I think that he feels a legit need. He can come in and be a rotational player in year one and possibly be a starter in year two. He's somebody that we needed and we got. I like him. I like what he does. He fits the team well. He's got a lot of strength. He's got personality. I like that pick a lot. Other than that, I'm not arguing that we got good players. I'm not arguing to trust the process. I'm not arguing against the Steelers, especially in terms of getting outside linebackers and getting running backs and receivers, because Pittsburgh tends to do some of those things pretty well, especially the wide receivers and the linebackers. But they drafted in reverse here. I mean, I feel like if you're going to draft a running back, you take one in the second round, especially if you've got J.K. Dobbins sitting there, who I think is the best running back in this draft and the best system fit for the Steelers. Then in the third round, you could address defensive tackle, Metabukwe, I believe, was sitting there. I'm not sure if he was there in the second or third round, but I would address with a Metabukwe or someone like that who could come in as a day one starter at D tackle, or at least be rotational with Alualu and McCullers to be an impact player by year two. And then in the fourth round, since this draft was so deep, you could have gotten a receiver you liked, a Mims or someone like that, or the guy from Florida, something like that. That way you could have still gotten an extra receiver for Ben Roethlisberger. You could have gotten the running back you wanted and the D tackle you wanted, and then in the fourth round you could have gotten the guard you wanted. So we could have gotten major upgrades at all your positions. Instead, they went after a receiver pretty high in a deep class that I think it has a lot of good raw talent and a lot of potential, and he's going to be a goal line help for us, but he wasn't our biggest need. So to draft a luxury pick as early as round 2, and then to go after kind of a raw outside linebacker who's a bit undersized when you already have your starters in place, instead of going after a D tackle or an offensive guard, which we could have used a lot more at that point, I just think it's a little backwards. I think it's a little weird. So the order of the draft here, then to bring in another running back from Maryland, who's an undersized guy. Yeah, he's a good change of pace. He's a burner. He can make some plays, but he's just a piece. He's another piece to a committee backfield. So if you're going to add a running back, why not get a superstar in the second round instead of going after a possible questionable character, a guy that has a lot of character complaints, undersized guy, durability can be in question. To take that so early, or to take that in a spot where we had bigger needs, I don't really understand that personally. So I'm going to give this draft a C-. I know the positive people out there are going to be like, oh, you're crapping on it. Again, I know the Steelers do well in the process usually. I know you got to trust the process. I know that we don't know anything until they start playing football. I know there's not going to be any camp this year. We're hopefully going to get some preseason back in August, and we're not going to know how these guys are until they actually get on the field and play with real players. We never know. The draft is always a guessing game. Even with your number 1 overall pick, there's been failures. So we know that we're all just analyzing and guessing based on our education of college football in the process, and I'm just giving my opinion. So I'm sorry if you guys think I'm being too negative on this one. It is the most negative that I've been on a Steelers draft in the last 4 or 5 years. But our last couple draft classes that have come to the 4-year contract term, most of those guys are no longer on the team. So it's been a little negative this year. But I would say C- for the Steelers. Notably, I would say that teams in the AFC, like the Colts and Broncos and Chargers, had really good drafts and added a lot of good pieces. And in our division, the Browns, Ravens, and Bengals all had really good drafts. They were 3 of the best drafts in the NFL. They all got A draft grades from me. So AFC teams around us getting better, AFC North and our division teams getting a lot better via draft, and we kind of stagnated in this draft. And again, filled some positional needs, but kind of waited till later rounds to do that. So that's my feedback on the draft. Again, I'm sorry if you guys disagree with the negativity. I'm just giving my analysis, and I hope all these players play well, and I want these guys to make the roster, and I want to be wrong, and I want to eat crow at the end of the season when the Steelers go 16-0 and win the Super Bowl. That's what I want to happen, but I'm just giving my educated analysis from being a college football fan, NFL fan, and previous NFL writer. So that's just sort of my feedback. What do you guys think? What do you think of these late round picks? Do either of these guys, Antoine Brooks or Carlos Davis, have a chance to make the roster? Could they make an impact rotationally? And also, we signed a bunch of undrafted free agents who I'm not going to mention because we signed like 10 of them and they usually don't make the roster. But the one that struck me was the defensive end from Kentucky. He's like 7 feet tall and 320 pounds. He's a massive man with some raw talent who could play either offensive line or defensive line. So what do you think of those guys? Will they make a difference? What do you think of this draft? Give it a grade. Give me some standout picks in this draft, and I want to hear from you guys. I will talk to you guys soon. Take care.